You know, around this time of year and in this season that we've been in, there are people that we walk by every single day that are going through stuff. Yeah. And we often get stuck trying to figure out how we can help them, right? We don't know what to do.
We think about that often, and I'm excited that we're going to talk about that right now.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this week. You know, we're going through this series, this idea that we see you. And, you know, this Sunday, Pastor Terry, you talked a lot about this idea of just showing up, right? Yep. How Jesus shows up for us, but also how we can show up for other people. And this is a really important principle, no matter where we're at in our own, emotional or mental health, but also for other people. But where in Scripture do we really see Jesus doing that? Like taking a little bit more, a different approach maybe to helping someone and showing up for them in a really radical way.
That's what I love about the story we're about to tell is because, whether it's someone that maybe you're watching and maybe you're going through a season of despair, or maybe you know of someone that is going through a season of despair, we always kind of ask the question, I want to help, but I don't know how. Right. And I think Jesus gives a couple of more principles. We covered some on Sunday, but he gives a couple more principles that I think we can pull from. And I want to read this story from the book of John. It's John 5, 1-6. And it says this: sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him a question: do you want to get well? What I love about that is I have actually been to this location that's excavated in Jerusalem. And so you actually see the colonnade, you actually see the pool areas. And so you know just where Jesus was. And I've walked through the gate that was right by, the gate that Jesus talks about. And what's fascinating is it says that Jesus Christ was heading to a festival. Jesus was going to a party. Jesus was going to the temple area to be able to hang out with his friends and to celebrate his Father. And in order to do that, when you walk through that gate, you would have to make a left turn to go to the temple area. Okay. Do you know where the pools were? They were to the right, which means that as Jesus was heading to the festival, he knew that the pools were to the right, and he pursued this individual into that area.
So he would have known that there's like this group of people that maybe are in need of something.
Absolutely. Right? And I love that about the compassion of God, is that because God didn't do what probably I or someone, you know what, I've got things to do, I'm really busy. Yeah. Jesus actually paused and he turned to the right and he sought out this man, this person who'd been struggling all of his life. And so I think that's really important for us to know this today, is that if you're struggling today, Jesus pursues you, that he pursues you at your worst. And the other thing that I love about this, Aaron, is that, as an individual that maybe has a friend or a family member that is going through, how can I help them? What is one thing that I can do? And I would just say this: pursue them. Go after them. Don't allow them. When you think of them, text them, call them. Let them know that you're right there, that you're there if they need you, because sometimes that's all it takes for them to be able to move to a different place in their mental health.
Yeah, so I love that Jesus, he really demonstrates what it really means to like literally go out of your way.
That's good, yeah.
Right, to help somebody. And why do you think sometimes maybe we hesitate to do that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Right. I think truthfully, one of the main reasons, besides just I don't have time, I'm selfishness, all those things that we all know we struggle with. It's like, oh gosh, I've got so much I've got to do. I think sometimes we don't because we don't know what to do. Right. We just don't know. Like Terry, what do I say? They're struggling. I can't even connect with where they're at in that moment. And I love this because you actually asked the right question in this, because this leads me to a second point that I noticed that Jesus did. Did you notice that in that story, Jesus sought out questions about this individual? Like he asked, tell me about this person. Yeah. And they said, oh, he's been here a long time and no one will help him in the pool. And so do you notice that the first person to engage was Jesus? Don't miss this, that this individual that was healed, he didn't ask Jesus to heal him. Jesus said, do you want to be well? And I think that's really important, and a lesson for you and I is that when we have someone that is struggling, maybe what they need in that moment is for us, instead of waiting for them to ask for help, maybe we need to look and say, hey, I love you, brother, I love you, sister, but I notice that there's something going on. Do you want to talk about it? And sometimes a person just needs to know that you recognize their pain. And when you recognize their pain and you reach into that, sometimes that really can help build margin, like we talked about last week, build margin in their life to be able to help them to get back on a better track.
I love this. There's so many great principles and things that we can talk about in this. The idea that Jesus meets us where we are, like he goes out of his way to show up in our lives. But then with that also, that we can do that for somebody else. And I love that. And maybe somebody has done that for you in your life, where somebody has gone out of their way to show up, or maybe there's somebody that you need to show up for. But we hope that you have enjoyed this series. We're going to continue this conversation again in the coming weeks, and we hope that you'll join us.